Urgent, Tatum makes a strong statement about the Lakers. Stay until the end to find out everything. But before starting the video, leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any important news about the Lakers. Growing up in St. Louis, Missouri, Jayson Tatum didn't just play basketball, he breathed it. His bedroom walls were covered with posters of Kobe Bryant, and he wore the number 24 during his high school years, not out of coincidence, but as a tribute to the player he admired most. While many kids dream of making it to the NBA, Tatum's dream was specific. He wanted to be a Laker. The purple and gold weren't just colors. They symbolized excellence, legacy, and the path Kobe had walked. For a young Tatum, the idea of being part of that tradition wasn't just inspiring. It was destiny. He watched every Lakers game he could, studied Kobe's footwork in detail, and even mimicked his mentality on the court. In every workout there was one goal: become good enough to one day wear that jersey. By the time Tatum was ready to enter the NBA draft in 2017, he was projected as a top 3 pick. He had starred at Duke, shown flashes of brilliance, and scouts were buzzing about his potential. The Lakers had the number 2 pick that year, and with Magic Johnson newly leading the franchise's front office, many believed Tatum would be a perfect fit. His skill set, work ethic, and scoring instincts aligned perfectly with what the Lakers needed. Tatum himself believed it. Every rumor, every mock draft pointed toward Los Angeles. He'd even had workouts with the team, where he reportedly impressed the coaching staff. The connection felt natural, almost inevitable. But as the days before the draft unfolded, a different narrative started to gain traction. The Lakers were zeroing in on Lonzo Ball, a hometown kid with a flashy passing game and enormous hype thanks to his time at UCLA and his outspoken father. It felt like a media storm, and Los Angeles, perhaps craving Showtime energy again, was leaning into it. When draft night finally arrived, Tatum sat with his family, waiting for the moment he'd envisioned for years. The first pick went to the Philadelphia 76ers. They took Markelle Fultz. Then came the Lakers. Commissioner Adam Silver stepped up to the podium and announced, with the second pick in the 2017 NBA draft, the Los Angeles Lakers select Lonzo Ball. Just like that, everything changed. Tatum didn't show it, but the disappointment hit hard. Not because he disliked Boston, far from it, but because everything he had built emotionally was tied to a different outcome. He had believed he would be a Laker. In his mind, that path had already begun. The Celtics selected Tatum with the third pick, and just like that, he became part of the franchise that had battled his childhood idols for decades. The irony wasn't lost on him. The team he had grown up watching as a rival was now his new home. Publicly, Tatum remained composed and grateful. He thanked Boston for the opportunity, praised the organization, and got to work immediately. But internally there was a shift, not bitterness but drive. The Lakers had passed on him. Now, every game, every drill, every matchup would be a reminder of that. He didn't talk about it at first. He didn't need to. His focus was clear: prove them wrong one bucket at a time. Over the following months, as summer league and training camp unfolded, Tatum quietly built momentum. He studied film obsessively, worked late into the night, and approached his rookie season like a veteran. He wasn't there to just develop. He was there to dominate. And all the while, that dream in purple and gold lingered, no longer as a destination, but as a memory that would fuel a new mission. He may not have become a Laker, but he was ready to show them exactly what they had missed. Jayson Tatum didn't expect to end up in Boston, not because he didn't admire the franchise, but because it had never been part of the vision. The Lakers were the dream. But now, wearing Celtics green, he was walking into the most storied organization in NBA history, and perhaps the most hostile environment for a former Kobe disciple. The irony ran deep. Boston wasn't just another team, it was the team that symbolized everything the Lakers weren't. Grit, tradition, defense, a culture of team-first basketball. Tatum, raised on Showtime and fadeaways, now found himself inside a system built on structure, toughness, and quiet intensity. But rather than resist the fit, he embraced it. From day one, Celtics head coach Brad Stevens noticed something in Tatum. Not just skill, but adaptability. Jayson didn't carry himself like a 19-year-old rookie. He was composed, polished, and most importantly, coachable. He soaked up knowledge from veterans like Al Horford, and he quickly built chemistry with Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart. Tatum's game spoke louder than any words. He wasn't flashy, he was efficient. Smooth footwork, a lethal mid-range jumper, and a defensive awareness far beyond his years. Boston's fan base, skeptical at first, began to see the outlines of something special. And so did the league. By mid-season, whispers of Rookie of the Year were being tossed around, and while Ben Simmons dominated headlines, Tatum's contributions on a playoff-bound team stood out. What made his rise even more compelling was how seamlessly he stepped into the spotlight when Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward went down with injuries. The Celtics could have folded. Instead, they turned to the kid. And the kid delivered. Game after game, Tatum carried himself like he belonged. He wasn't overwhelmed by the pace of the NBA. If anything, he looked like he'd been built for it. There was a quiet vengeance behind his calm demeanor, a sense that every bucket was proving a point. When the Celtics reached the Eastern Conference Finals in his rookie season, most expected them to be swept by LeBron James and the Cavaliers. But Tatum didn't flinch. He met the moment head-on, averaging over 18 points per game in the series and delivering a highlight that would become part of his personal mythology, a powerful dunk on LeBron in Game 7 followed by a chest bump heard around the basketball world. That moment wasn't just a highlight. It was a declaration. Tatum wasn't here to wait his turn. He was here to take it. And as Boston fell just short of the finals, a new question began surfacing. Had the Lakers made a monumental mistake? Analysts debated it daily. Laker fans watched Tatum's highlights with growing discomfort. Even Kobe Bryant, who had trained Tatum in the offseason, spoke glowingly about him. "That kid is serious," Kobe said. "He wants it." The words rang louder than anything else. Because coming from Kobe, it was more than praise, it was validation. For Tatum, it was a bittersweet echo. His idol had noticed. The team he had dreamed of playing for had not. But Boston had believed. Boston had drafted him. And now, Tatum wasn't just wearing the jersey, he was redefining it. As his rookie year came to a close, Jayson Tatum had already reshaped the narrative. He wasn't just the guy the Lakers passed on. He was Boston's future. The franchise that had once symbolized the opposite of everything he dreamed of had become the place where he was building a new dream. One forged not in purple and gold, but in grit and green. And somewhere deep inside, the fire still burned. He would never say it out loud. But every time he checked the schedule, one date always stood out. Lakers versus Celtics. The rivalry was back. And for Tatum, it was personal. Jayson Tatum learned quickly that some games carried more weight than others. And no matter what the standings said, Celtics versus Lakers was never just another game. For most players, the Boston-Los Angeles rivalry was history, something to respect, not something to feel. But for Tatum, it was different. Every time he faced the Lakers, it stirred something deeper. This wasn't about nostalgia or old finals matchups. For him, it was personal. In his first few seasons, Tatum circled those games on the calendar. Not out of revenge, but as a quiet reminder, they didn't pick me. That single moment in 2017 still echoed in his mind. He wasn't bitter, but he never forgot. And he made sure his games said what his mouth wouldn't. The first time Tatum played in Staples Center, under those bright lights, beneath the retired jerseys and on the court his idol once ruled, it was surreal. He could feel it in his chest during warm-ups. The building had a pulse. The banners above seemed to watch him. Kobe's spirit felt alive there. And when the game started, he played like it was his home. In one of those early matchups, Tatum poured in 27 points, hitting fadeaways from the elbow, getting to the rim at will, and locking down on defense. It was a performance that had Laker fans murmuring. Not booing, murmuring. Wondering. What if? That reaction grew over the years. The more Tatum shined in those games, the louder the questions became. Media segments would ask, "Did the Lakers make a mistake?" Twitter lit up every time he outplayed whoever the Lakers drafted instead. ESPN debated it. Fans argued over it. But Tatum? He said nothing. Instead, he elevated his play year after year. One particular matchup in 2020 became an instant classic. Tatum dropped a then-career-high 41 points against LeBron and AD in a nail-biter that came down to the final possessions. Though the Celtics lost by 2, Tatum was the story. He had torched the Lakers' defense all night, scoring from every spot on the floor with confidence that bordered on swagger. After the game, LeBron James approached him and said, "That's your team now." The cameras caught the moment, but what they didn't catch was what it meant to Tatum. That nod from LeBron wasn't just respect, it was transfer. A signal that he had arrived. And yet, even with those highs, Tatum never let the rivalry consume him emotionally. He channeled it. In interviews he kept it professional. "It's always a big game," he'd say, or, "You want to show up in the big moments." But behind those calm words, there was always something unsaid. The Lakers had once been the dream. Now they were fuel. Fans began to notice the pattern. Tatum always showed up against LA. He treated those games differently. Some players rise for rivalries, others fold. Tatum thrived. He embraced the pressure, the noise, the weight of 2 historic franchises. And he made sure that every time he stepped on that court, the Lakers were reminded of the opportunity they let go. By 2023, the stats were clear. Tatum averaged more points against the Lakers than almost any other Western Conference team. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a statement. And the message was simple. You didn't choose me. But now you have to face me. As his star continued to rise, all-star selections, deep playoff runs, MVP chatter, Tatum became not just Boston's cornerstone, but a symbol of what the Lakers could have had. And in a rivalry built on legacies, that kind of narrative added fire to every chapter. Because for all the banners and highlights, some games tell a different kind of story, not about who won but about what could have been. And no one embodied that tension quite like Jayson Tatum. While Jayson Tatum was crafting his own legacy in Boston, one part of him never faded, the part shaped by Kobe Bryant. That influence wasn't just about moves on the court, it was about mentality. And in the years following Kobe's tragic passing in 2020, Tatum's connection to his childhood idol deepened. Becoming more than inspiration, it became purpose. Few players had trained as closely with Kobe during his post-retirement mentorship phase as Tatum did. In the summer of 2018, Tatum had the chance to work out with Kobe one-on-one, and it left a permanent mark on his mindset. Footwork, patience, shot selection, but more than anything, attitude. Kobe told him, "Don't try to be like me. Be better." Tatum carried that message like a torch. In practices, he attacked drills with surgical intensity. In games, his footwork grew sharper, more deliberate, each pivot echoing Kobe's. And yet, he didn't become a clone. He merged that Mamba influence with his own smooth, methodical rhythm. He wasn't just mimicking greatness, he was evolving it. Every time he laced up, especially against the Lakers, he wasn't just trying to score. He was honoring a promise, playing as if Kobe were still watching. The world noticed it most during the 2020 season in the aftermath of Kobe's death. Across the league, tributes poured in. But for Tatum, the tribute came through action. That year he took his game to a new level. He averaged career highs in points, led the Celtics to a deep playoff run, and displayed a new mental edge. It wasn't just confidence, it was clarity. He played with a kind of poise that couldn't be taught, only forged. His late-game execution became surgical. He welcomed the pressure. In tight moments he often whispered, "Mamba mentality," to himself. Not to copy, but to remind. Tatum once said in an interview, "I used to want to play for the Lakers because of Kobe. But now I want to play like Kobe no matter what jersey I wear." That shift defined a major turn in his career. He no longer chased the Lakers' legacy. He chased greatness, period. Boston, with its own championship banners and ghosts of legends, became the perfect battleground. He wasn't haunted by what might have been anymore. He was driven by what still could be. He began mentoring younger players the same way Kobe once mentored him. Quietly, he was becoming the kind of leader he used to look up to. That evolution wasn't lost on teammates, coaches, or opponents. Everyone began to see Tatum not just as a star, but as that guy. The closer. The face of a franchise. A student of the game now teaching. And through it all, his respect for Kobe remained evident. He wore armbands in purple and gold on Mamba Day. He often spoke about Kobe's influence during press conferences. But more than anything, he showed it with his game. Every fadeaway over a defender. Every possession where he waved off a screen to go one-on-one. Every game where he refused to quit even when the odds stacked high. Tatum didn't just carry Kobe's spirit, he honored it. Especially against the Lakers. Those games, already charged with rivalry, became sacred to him. Not because of old grudges, but because that court, that opponent, always brought out his sharpest edge. It was his personal proving ground. The place where childhood dreams collided with adult reality. And in those moments, with cameras flashing and the crowd roaring, he wasn't just Jayson Tatum. He was the Mamba in green and white. No longer chasing the Lakers. No longer needing their validation. Because now he had something even more powerful. Kobe's belief that greatness isn't given by a jersey or a franchise. It's taken, one moment at a time. By the time Jayson Tatum entered his 6th season in the NBA, his name was no longer tied to potential. It was etched firmly among the league's elite. Multiple All-Star appearances, deep playoff runs, and clutch performances had become the norm. But even as his personal accolades grew, something more subtle began to unfold. He was becoming a symbol of Boston's next great chapter. Tatum had never imagined it this way. As a teenager, his vision of the future was draped in purple and gold. But now, in his mid-20s, it was clear. His actual legacy was being written in Celtics green. He had earned that place. Not just with his skill, but with his evolution as a leader. Early in his career, Tatum had played with a smooth calm, sometimes even too quiet for fans hungry for fire. But as each season passed, his voice grew louder. He started directing teammates on the floor, challenging them in huddles, and holding himself accountable in losses. Leadership wasn't something he forced, it was something he became. And Boston noticed. The franchise, once led by legends like Paul Pierce, Larry Bird, and Bill Russell, had always reserved true reverence for players who embodied more than just talent. They valued winners, fighters, professionals who carried the Celtic standard. Tatum didn't declare himself as the next in line, he earned it. One game at a time. Ironically, the turning point came during one of his lowest moments, the 2022 NBA Finals loss to the Golden State Warriors. Tatum had played well throughout the playoffs, but struggled in the finals, turning the ball over and looking fatigued under the pressure of the spotlight. Critics pounced. Was he ready for the big stage? Was he really the face of the franchise? Rather than retreat from the criticism, Tatum absorbed it. He reviewed every game. He spoke openly about his disappointment. And more importantly, he responded. The next season he came back stronger, more aggressive, more vocal. He averaged career highs in points, rebounds, and assists. And in head-to-head matchups, especially against the Lakers, he reminded everyone of what he could do when he took things personally. One marquee game at TD Garden saw Tatum drop 44 points against LeBron and Anthony Davis in a statement win. But it wasn't just the stats that made headlines, it was the composure. The way he controlled the pace. The confidence in his footwork. The refusal to be rattled, even when LA mounted a furious comeback. After the game, reporters asked about the rivalry. Tatum, cool as ever, replied, "Lakers, Celtics always means something. It's a little more than basketball." What he didn't say, but everyone understood, was that it meant something deeper to him. He never needed to be a Laker to prove he belonged. In fact, not being chosen had pushed him further than he may have gone otherwise. The rejection had become fuel. And that fuel lit the fire that had carried Boston back to contention. Now, kids in Boston were wearing his jersey the way he once wore Kobe's. They studied his footwork. They copied his moves in the driveway. To them, Jayson Tatum wasn't the one who got passed over. He was the one who led them. The one who stayed. The one who, despite being drafted by the team he never expected to love, had become one of its greatest hopes. That realization struck Tatum gradually. In charity events, when fans thanked him for giving them something to believe in. In the rafters at TD Garden, where banners whispered promises yet to be fulfilled. In the locker room, where younger players now looked to him for guidance. And perhaps most poignantly, in quiet moments after games, when he'd look around the arena, the crowd still buzzing, and think, "This is mine now." The legacy he didn't expect had become the one he wouldn't trade for anything. Not even for the purple and gold. As Jayson Tatum matured into a full-fledged superstar, his career became a study in consistency. But within that consistency lived something more layered, a quiet sense of mission. He wasn't just building stats, he was building meaning. And nothing amplified that mission more than the games that truly mattered. The Lakers games. Year after year, whether the Celtics were contending or regrouping, whether LeBron was active or sidelined, whether the stage was Boston or Los Angeles, those matchups carried extra weight. The fans knew it. The media hyped it. But most of all, Tatum felt it. These were no longer just reminders of the team that passed on him. These games had evolved into something more complex. A symbol of identity. It was where his two basketball lives intersected, the childhood dream of LA and the adult reality of Boston. And with every possession, every dagger three, every defensive stand, Tatum quietly said, "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." There was one game in early 2024 that summed up the rivalry in its newest form. The Lakers came into TD Garden on a 6-game win streak. Boston was reeling from injuries. The media billed it as a prime opportunity for LA to make a statement and reclaim momentum in the storied rivalry. But Tatum had other plans. He walked into that game with a different look in his eyes, a razor-sharp focus. From the tip-off, he asserted control. He wasn't just scoring, he was orchestrating. Fading away from the baseline like Kobe, dishing out cross-court assists, sprinting back on defense before the ball even hit the rim. He was locked in. Not for show, but for proof. By the end of the night, he had 39 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, and, more importantly, a 15-point win. After the game, Lakers coach Darvin Ham summed it up with one sentence. Tatum took that personally. And he was right. That wasn't just a game. It was a message. Not only to the Lakers front office who chose Lonzo Ball instead of him back in 2017, but to the basketball world that still sometimes hesitated to put Tatum in the top tier. Each Lakers game became his silent response. To the doubters. To the missed opportunity. To the version of himself who once wondered what if? But even more than that, it was about claiming control of his own narrative. Tatum didn't just play well against LA, he elevated. He hunted matchups. He dictated tempo. And as his game matured, so did his perspective. He no longer needed to prove the Lakers wrong. Now he simply wanted to prove Boston right. Because that's what he had become, a franchise pillar. A leader. The type of player future Celtics would measure themselves against. Fans began to see the parallels more clearly. Tatum, once a wide-eyed Kobe disciple, was now the standard. His name came up in MVP talks regularly. His jersey was top 10 in global sales. And around the league, the respect had crystallized. Players knew, if Tatum was your matchup, you were in for a war. Especially if you wore purple and gold. Those nights became chess matches. LeBron, aging but brilliant, still capable of dictating moments. Anthony Davis, a defensive wall. But it didn't matter. Tatum knew what he was walking into every time. And he loved it. The tension. The pressure. The history. He fed off it. Not like a villain, not like a hero, but like a professional who understood what was at stake. "You can't fake those games," he once said. "You've got to mean it." And he did. Every game against the Lakers had become a ritual. Not of revenge, but of recognition. It was the mirror in which Tatum measured his growth, not against the team he once dreamed of joining, but against the version of himself that never would have been built there. Boston was where he became the player he was meant to be. The rivalry was where he reminded the world. As the years passed, the Celtics-Lakers rivalry evolved into more than just a clash of franchises. It became a personal saga defined by Jayson Tatum. The matchups between these teams were no longer just about championships or history, they were about legacy, respect, and unfinished business. For Tatum, the rivalry had grown beyond his initial feelings of frustration or disappointment over not being drafted by the Lakers. It had matured into a profound motivation to carve out his own identity, not as the player the Lakers passed on, but as a force in his own right. Boston and Los Angeles became the stage where this narrative played out, with every game adding new layers to the story. The Celtics' young core, anchored by Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and emerging stars, faced off against Lakers squads blending veterans and rising talents. Each encounter was intense, fueled by media hype and fan passion, but it was on the court where the true drama unfolded. Tatum's approach had changed. He no longer saw the Lakers merely as an opponent, he saw them as a measuring stick for his growth. Every time he stepped onto the court against them, he was reminded of how far he'd come and how much further he could go. This shift in perspective was apparent during the 2024 playoffs, when the Celtics faced the Lakers in a high-stakes series. The atmosphere was electric, the history palpable. For Tatum, this was the ultimate proving ground. Game after game, he played with a mix of determination and poise, delivering clutch baskets, key defensive plays, and leadership moments that inspired his teammates. The Celtics pushed the Lakers to the brink, with several games decided in the final seconds. While the Celtics ultimately fell short of a series win, the battle reaffirmed Tatum's place among the elite. Analysts lauded his performances, highlighting his ability to rise under pressure and carry his team. Off the court, the rivalry continued to fuel conversations, with fans debating who had the upper hand. Yet for Tatum, the focus remained clear. Keep improving, keep leading, and let his play do the talking. In interviews, he often reflected on the journey. "It's not about being mad or holding grudges," he said. "It's about competition, respect, and pushing each other to be better." This mature outlook resonated with fans and peers alike, showing growth beyond the hardwood. Ultimately, the rivalry had become a defining chapter in Tatum's career, one that showcased resilience, ambition, and the relentless pursuit of greatness. As Jayson Tatum continues to shape his legacy, the story of the rivalry with the Lakers remains a central thread in his career narrative. But while the past and present have been filled with memorable battles and personal growth, his eyes are firmly set on what lies ahead. By 2025, Tatum has established himself not only as a franchise cornerstone for the Celtics but as one of the premier players in the NBA. With several All-Star appearances, deep playoff runs, and a steady improvement in his game, he's poised to chase what every great player dreams of, a championship. Yet, for Tatum, the pursuit is about more than just trophies. It's about building a legacy that transcends teams or rivalries. It's about becoming a player who inspires, leads, and elevates those around him. A player who writes his own story, one defined by perseverance, heart, and excellence. The rivalry with the Lakers still fuels his fire. Every game against them remains a chance to showcase his growth, to honor the journey from a hopeful kid dreaming of LA to a mature superstar leading Boston. It's a reminder of where he started and how far he's come. But beyond the court, Tatum is also focused on impact. He's involved in community initiatives, mentoring younger players, and investing in projects that empower youth and foster growth. The lessons learned on the hardwood, discipline, resilience, dedication, inform his approach to life off the court. Looking to the future, many wonder what the next chapter holds. Will Tatum remain in Boston for the prime of his career? Will the Lakers or other teams pursue him in a blockbuster trade? The NBA landscape is ever-changing, but one thing is clear. Wherever he plays, Jayson Tatum's story will continue to captivate fans. In his own words, spoken during a recent interview, "I'm focused on the present, but I'm always thinking about legacy. How I want to be remembered. Not just as a great player, but as a great person." And with that mindset, the rivalry that once sparked frustration has evolved into a powerful motivator. One that pushes him to be better, to lead harder, and to chase greatness every single night. Because for Jayson Tatum, the journey is far from over. It's only just beginning.